What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Halloween Cup once again, and the team we're taking a look at today is LEAVANNY, Azumarill, and Carbink. Now, this is not a team that I would recommend for climbing. However, I did have a lot of success with it, and I think that was because of the meta that I was seeing, and that meta is pretty much right here. Everything that LEAVANNY beats. I was seeing so much Golurk, Nidoqueen, Azumarill, Jellicent. I even saw the occasional Frostlass. I was seeing Florges, Shadow Dusknoir, Greninja. And the reason that LEAVANNY beats all of these is because, one, it's a Shadow Claw user, so it has super effective coverage for the ghosts. It's a grass type, so it resists Hydro Cannon from Greninja and the Mud Slaps from Nidoqueen and Golurk. And it actually double resists the Mud Slaps because it is also part Bug, which comes really handy. And obviously as a grass type that gets to these Leaf Blades super quick, you're going to just be outpacing those water types and beating them. So yeah, it was a very fun core breaker, paired it up with two very bulky Pokemon that cover its weaknesses in the back. Without further ado, let's hop into some battles. I will say there are a lot of core breakers to this team, and seeing one of the core breakers on the lead in the very first match, so picking up a pretty tough lead, and it is a Tinkaton. Now Tinkaton, of course, resists both of my charge moves here. However, Leaf Blade is only single resisted, whereas X-Scissor is double resisted. So I go for the Leaf Blade, and then I pivot into my Azumarill to soak up this energy, because Azumarill will take neutral damage from the energy of Tinkaton, and these bubbles will start to add up to a point where I can put them in play rough range. So after connecting with the Leaf Blade, I pivot into my Azumarill, go for the bubbles, and now I will look to pick up the knockout with a play rough. This is resisted damage, but we've got the opponent pretty low. It puts them deep into the red, and in the back is a Shadow Nidoqueen, which is why the opponent did not want to swap out. We now will be able to make it to the super effective Ice Beam. The opponent puts up a shield, so now in comes LEAVANNY. LEAVANNY can match shields here to the Poison Fang. This wouldn't be enough to knock out, but it would put us deep into the red, and Mud Slaps are double resisted here, so I may as well go for the shield and look to connect with a Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade picks up the knockout on the Shadow Nidoqueen, and in the back is a Murkrow, so we have won this game already because X-Scissor is neutral damage. The opponent ends up letting that go, and now we have a Carbink to completely wall the opponent. The opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take a Game 1 win. Into next match, picking up a good lead this time, we've got LEAVANNY into Greninja, and the opponent is staying in. So this is a matchup we would love to see, but instead, in comes a Dragalge. Now, I don't really want the Carbink to see the Greninja, which is why I decide to come in with the Carbink here instead of my Azumarill. Azumarill, of course, would probably have a better matchup against the Dragalge, assuming they're not running Sludge Bomb, but I would guess that they are running Sludge Bomb in this meta. That said, I will be able to make it to a Rock Slide before my opponent is able to connect with Aqua Tail number 3, and Rock Slide is actually going to grab a shield from my opponent. However, I know I can still have one more Aqua Tail, so I will just let it go, and then I will just look to match shield with my opponent if they make it to another one, and that's exactly what my opponent's going to do. And now I can look to overfarm in this matchup, connect with a Rock Slide to pick up the knockout, or grab that final shield for my opponent, as I'm not threatened by a Dragon Tail farm down because that is double resisted and Carbink is extremely bulky. So Rock Slide picks up the knockout. We get to maintain switch, and the opponent ends up getting an energy lead on Nidoqueen. So now I have a choice to make. I decide to come in with LEAVANNY. Now LEAVANNY still has a good matchup into the remaining two Pokemon, and kind of Azumarill does too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a shield. The opponent snipes with a Night Slash now that my defense is lowered, but this is still not going to be enough to knock out. I'm already at 100 energy, but I overfarm as much as possible. Leaf Blade from this range, it's super effective. It picks up the knockout. Back in comes the Nidoqueen, but Nidoqueen is already going to be hit with the back-to-back Leaf Blades. Here comes Leaf Blade number 1, that grabs the final shield from the opponent, and here comes Leaf Blade number 2. We've seen how much damage this does to a Shadow Nidoqueen. It puts them deep into the red health range. We get the simultaneous KO. Azumarill gets to take the entire game off, and we are able to take that win. Terrible lead in the next match. We've got LEAVANNY into Mandibuzz, so going to save switch into the Azumarill, and we end up luring out a Nidoqueen. Now this is why Azumarill is the safe switch on this team, because Azumarill has super effective Bubble and Ice Beam into both of the poison grounds that Carbink and LEAVANNY don't really want to see. LEAVANNY is fine against Nidoqueen, but like a Clodsire would be a difficult matchup, kind of ABA weak to that Pokemon, triple weak to Shadow Scizor, weak to Tinkaton. So this team isn't great team building wise, but for what I was seeing, it made a lot of sense. That said, I will make sure I grab 2 shields out of this matchup before I go down, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And now I can just look to come in with LEAVANNY. I can absorb 1 Poison Fang, but they have farmed up enough for a Stone Edge here, so I will respect it with a shield, and it is the full send of the Stone Edge, which is nice. Now I'm going to look for the full Shadow Call Off farm down, and we do get it. Back in comes the Mandibuzz, but Mandibuzz will be hit with the Carbink. Carbink is met with a Greninja in the back. The opponent is going to make it to 5 Water Shurikens here. And it is going to be the Surf from the opponent. I guess they just built their Greninja during this event, because Hydro Cannon is definitely the way to go. Unfortunately, Rock Slide is not enough to knock out. The opponent is already at the back-to-back charge moves. They end up going for a Night Slash. That is not enough to knock out. Back in comes the Mandibuzz, but Mandibuzz will not be able to pick up the knockout here with a resisted charge move. They go for the Foul Play. It's not enough. I'm now going to connect with a Rock Slide. And Rock Slide is super effective damage, and that allows me to combo play with the LEAVANNY. Now, LEAVANNY does take double super effective damage from the air slashes and the aerial aces from the opponent, but we should be able to outpace, make it to back-to-back X Scissors, and X Scissor is neutral because it's super effective on dark, but resisted on flying. X Scissor number 2 will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Mandibuzz, so the opponent force quits the app, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got LEAVANNY into Golurk, so this is a fantastic lead. It does not get better than this. The opponent save switches into a Klefki, and suddenly what went from fantastic went to a lot worse, because I do not have a good answer to Klefki on this team. Fortunately, the worst they can do is hit me for a neutral play rough, and neutral play rough is not even enough to 2-shot, but with these Astonishes, it might put me in range where they can Astonish farm me down. I will go for the harder hitting Moonblast. It is resisted damage, but it is not enough to pick up the knockout, so I'm forced to commit a shield here. Now the question is, can I get a full Rock Throw farm down before the opponent is able to make it to yet another play rough? And it looks like it's going to be close. Can I get there? Yes, I can. That is absolutely massive, because now I can either do huge damage to this Golurk or get them to match shields. So here comes the Moonblast. They end up deciding to match shields, which is fantastic for me, because LEAVANNY can live 1 charge move here. So I'm probably just going to let the first one go, and then I have Azumarill in the back for whatever is that final Pokemon. I read that they're going to instantly pivot after throwing the charge move, so I pivot at the exact same time. And now this is a matchup where you can just go double Ice Beam, because 1 play rough is not enough to knock out. So I'm going to go for the double Ice Beam route. The opponent does still have a shield, but they can't go for Icy Winds in this matchup because Icy Wind is resisted. So this forces the opponent to go for Swifts, not lowering my attack, but they will be able to outpace me to 2 charge moves. However, as long as I grab that final shield, this game is over, because a Leaf Blade will be enough to pick up the knockout from this range. So here comes Ice Beam number 2, and then I'm going to look to instantly pivot into my LEAVANNY. Just watch for the catch. They do not get it. So now I'm going to connect with the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade from this range should be enough to pick up the knockout on the Wigglytuff. And now back in comes the Golurk. Golurk is going to get outpaced, so they resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, picking up another decent lead, we've got LEAVANNY into Nidoqueen. So let's see how we want to play this out. What I like to do is not throw an alignment. However, a lot of opponents do like to throw an alignment. This is the Shadow Nidoqueen, so I actually will respect a Poison Fang here, even though it is not enough to knock out. And the opponent is going to stay in this matchup. So now I'm going to start spamming out these Leaf Blades. Here comes Leaf Blade number 1. That ends up getting no shielded, and in the back is a XL Shadow Grimer, so a very cool pick for my opponent. So I end up pivoting out of that matchup into my Azumarill, but the opponent responds with a Greninja instead of staying in. I guess they want to keep their Grimer around for the LEAVANNY. It kind of makes sense. Greninja does not have a good matchup there, but they end up switching into an Azumarill, which is not a good matchup for them either. So Azumarill doing some very nice core breaking in the back. The opponent is going to be able to start spamming out these Hydro Cannons, and with a successful Ice Beam bait, that allows me to get to a Play Rough and Play Rough from this range. It's super effective damage. It knocks out the Greninja. Back in comes the Grimer, but Grimer will be outpaced unless they throw energy, so they will have to go for a Sludge in order to pick up the knockout. And now in comes LEAVANNY. LEAVANNY double resist the Mud Slaps here, so I can comfortably make it 2 back-to-back Leaf Blades. The opponent hasn't even seen my third, so if they put up a shield, in comes the Carbink. So Leaf Blade number 2, but they do not. They let it go. They know the game is over, and we are able to take that win. Into the next matchup, we've got a terrible lead. We've got LEAVANNY into Murkrow, so I'm going to safe switch into the Azumarill. The opponent responds with the Nidoqueen. We've seen this matchup before, but I think this opponent switched a little bit slower, because we are able to outpace, make it to the Ice Beam. Ice Beam does grab a shield from the opponent, and this opponent is going to look to overfarm in this matchup. They are now at the back-to-back Poison Fangs, but I know I can live one, so I will let it go, and it actually ends up being an Earth Power Nidoqueen. Maybe they're on Earth Power Stone Edge, but that allows me to get to the Ice Beam. Ice Beam actually picks up the knockout, it flips Switch, and that is absolutely huge. They are going to get a full peck farm down, but that does not matter when we have a complete wall to energy. And Carbink in the back is a Decidueye, so we have a fantastic matchup here. The opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got LEAVANNY into GRENINJA once again. This is a fantastic lead. The opponent is going to safe switch into a Driftblim, and they are going to be hit with the Carbink. Now, Carbink, of course, has super effective rock throws, and we know we can comfortably survive either an Icy Wind or a Shadow Ball, so I will just let it go as they only farm up to the Icy Wind. However, the opponent is now farming up to the Shadow Ball, and it looks like they would actually make it, so I'm forced to throw energy here to pick up the knockout. Rock Slide does just that. Back in comes the Greninja, but the Greninja is going to be outpaced. That allows me to make it to a Rock Slide, and this is not super effective damage, but it will do meaningful chip to the Greninja, so they do end up committing a shield. The opponent is making the correct play of overfarming as much as possible. They don't commit to the farm down, however, and that is perfectly fine with me, because I can let this go. Night Slash does pick up the knockout, and I can just come in with the LEAVANNY, let a Night Slash go, and if they make it to another, then commit a shield, because at this point, we still have a shield advantage. So Night Slash connects. I'm going to pivot into the Azumarill instead in order to catch Night Slash number 2, and that is absolutely fantastic, as in the back is a Frostlass. Frostlass has resisted Powder Snows in this matchup, and while they will be able to outpace me to a charge move, that is a-okay, because all I have to do is grab a shield from my opponent. However, I make a bit of a risky play here. I go for the Ice Beam bait. This is resisted damage, so if the opponent calls this, this could get tricky, but fortunately the opponent does put up that shield, and now I can go for a play rough. The opponent over farms, allowing me to get to this play rough, maybe underestimating the energy stored on the Azumarill. That does big damage to the Frostlass, which means all we have to do is save 2 shields for the LEAVANNY, and LEAVANNY can take home this win. So Shadow Ball does pick up the knockout, back in comes LEAVANNY. We actually get the full Shadow Claw farm down, leaving with a Leaf Blade loaded for the Greninja. And Leaf Blade is super effective damage. It will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Greninja, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got LEAVANNY into Guzzlord. So 2 better answers in the back. However, stored energy on LEAVANNY could be nice because we could come back out of this matchup with a super effective X-Scissor. But we end up luring out a Fortress, and this is not a bad thing to lure out, as LEAVANNY doesn't really want to see the Fortress, and Carbink has a neutral enough matchup there. But Azumarill with the bubbles can actually inflict some decent damage. The opponent will allow me to connect with a play rough before they connect with a Rock Tomb of their own. But Rock Tomb is not even enough to 2-shot, so I'm going to go for play rough number 2. And depending on what my opponent decides to do here, I may end up committing a shield. The opponent is going to farm up. They're farming up so much energy. I know a Rock Tomb is not enough to pick up the knockout here, so I will just let this go. Rock Tomb puts us deep into the red health range, but we are able to make it to an Ice Beam before the opponent makes it to another charge move. So I'm just going to under tap the move. Ice Beam picks up the knockout. Back in comes the Guzzlord, but Guzzlord cannot get the farm down before I'm going to get to a play rough. They end up sniping with a Shadow Scissor, which is a really nice play. And now I am in trouble because there is a Shadow Scissor with 2 shields against a Carbink and a LEAVANNY left in this game. This game seems impossible to win at this point. I am going to go for a double resist Leaf Blade. I need this to land, but no, the opponent does end up putting up a shield. Can I get to another charge move? Yes, I can. I outpaced the opponent, making it to Leaf Blade number 2. Leaf Blade number 2, going to grab the second shield from the opponent, but the opponent has double super effective fast moves and a super effective charge move here. I have to respect a Trailblaze, as I do not believe they can make it to back-to-back moves. Trailblaze connects, grabbing the last shield. They get so many boosted sucker punches, but it's not, not sucker punches, bullet punches, but it's not enough because back in comes a Guzzlord, and even though they have basically back-to-back Sludge Bombs loaded, that is only neutral damage against the Carbink because Rock resists poison, whereas Fairy takes super effective. That allows me to get to the Moonblast, and Moonblast is double super effective damage on the Guzzlord. It picks up the knockout, and we are able to take that win against a Shadow Scissor. Into the next matchup, we've got a familiar lead, LEAVANNY into Nidoqueen. The opponent is actually going to save switch into a Volt Switch Fortress, and I'm going to stay in this matchup and look for a Rock Tomb catch on my Carbink. Unfortunately, I am unsuccessful. The opponent holds on to their energy, which means now they can connect with a super effective Earthquake against the Carbink. However, 2 Earthquakes are not enough to knock out. But with the Volt Switches, they might just be. So here comes a neutral Rock Slide. The opponent does end up letting that go, and at this point, I kind of don't really need to maintain switch, but I will put up the shield as I think that Carbink might have play in the back, but the opponent makes a pretty smart play. They pivot back into their Nidoqueen, but Nidoqueen will be outpaced as I'm able to pivot back into the Leavanny. Leavanny can now connect with a Leaf Blade, and the opponent will be able to get off a super effective Poison Fang. I'm going to actually put up a shield here because I think that Leavanny might have play in the back. However, I'm unable to get the farm down, so I'm forced to throw this Leaf Blade here. Does the opponent commit the shield? No, they are just going to let that go and take that 2 shield advantage. In the back is a Murkrow, and Murkrow, of course, is a terrible Pokemon for my Leavanny to see. So now in comes Azumarill. Basically, just have to watch for the catch here because a catch would basically lose me this game. But a Drill Peck does connect. I just have to watch for it. I end up waiting the turn, watching the Peck go through, and under tapping the move. And now that I've grabbed that final shield, this game is pretty much over because we have stored energy on the Carbink, and I do not believe the Fortress can make it to another charge move. So Drill Peck, nearly enough to knock out the opponent, looking for the full Peck farm down. They're not going to get it, so they snipe with the Fortress, but now in comes Carbink. We get the Rock Throw farm down. We leave with a Rock Slide loaded. The opponent doesn't have the energy to make it to the charge move, so Rock Slide is super effective damage. It easily knocks out the Murkrow, and we are able to take that win. Into, I believe, the final match of the video, another Nidoqueen on the lead. However, this one is the non-Shadow Nidoqueen, so let's see how we want to play this out. This one, we can very comfortably survive the Poison Fang, so if the opponent decides to throw on alignment, I will actually just let this go. Poison Fang does about 50% to the Leavanny, and now I can look to overfarm, but the opponent makes a really nice catch onto a Fortress where Leaf Blade is double resisted, and I don't have a great response to Fortress, but I did see it was a Bug Bite Fortress, so I'm going to come in with the Carbink, knowing that Bug Bites are resisted, and that Rock Throws and Rock Slides are neutral. The opponent will be able to connect with an Earthquake here. That does some pretty solid chip, but it's not enough to knock out. And now I'm going to make it to a Rock Slide. And Rock Slide from this range will probably nearly knock out the Fortress. The opponent does end up letting that go. We are able to get the full Rock Throw farm down. And if they want to come back with the Nidoqueen, they're going to have to take a Moonblast here. I'm just looking for the attack drop if I can get it. And Moonblast is just a better stab move. So I do end up throwing it. Back in comes the Leavanny. We get the snipe with the Leaf Blade. Is the opponent willing to commit a shield here, or will they just let this go? They end up letting that go, but I'm able to make it to yet another Leaf Blade, maybe underestimating how much energy the Leavanny had stored. The opponent double shields their Nidoqueen. They're looking for the full farm down. They can't quite get it, so they snipe with a Guzzlord, but Guzzlord, it's time to meet your maker. In comes Azumarill. Azumarill will be hit with a super effective Sludge Bomb here, so I will respect it with a shield, and it is the Sludge Bomb. So now I can look to overfarm just by 1 and go for the double super effective play rough against the Guzzlord. And the opponent, unfortunately, cannot make it to 2 moves before I'm able to make it to get the bubble farm down. But instead, why not just go for the catch, because we can. Poison Fang does pick up the knockout on the Carbink. They're going to throw their other Poison Fang, but we know we can live this, so I'm just going to let it go. Azumarill gets the bubble farm down, and we are able to take that win. So yeah, that is Leavanny against the Halloween Cup. I actually ran Leavanny in the Halloween Cup last year, and I had a ton of fun of it. This time, I've paired it with 2 extremely bulky fairy types in the back that deal with its fire weakness. And that was a lot of fun because I could just use them as damage sponges and basically have 4 shields for Leavanny, and that was what made this team so fun, and it did so awesome core breaking. But before I wrap up this video, I do want to say thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Green Mustache, Eliana, Perry G, Blue Nation, Peter Rushworth, Alright 504, Chompus Clips, and Sons of Code, as well as an extra special thank you to the legend trainer members on this channel: Andrew Bitten, Musaju, Noodleman, Speedster, Estros, Fast Eat Boss, CD Slaskus, and Star Bonsai. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace!